Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good evening. I'm Ishita Shah. I'm an infectious disease scientist by training and now co founder and CEO of Matrubials, where we develop milk inspired therapies for infectious diseases, starting with women's health as our lead indication. In terms of the global healthcare threat that we are addressing, it is antimicrobial resistance, where common infections are becoming increasingly non responsive to existing therapies. So think TB, think UTI, think MRSA for skin infections. As long as there's life, there's going to be infections and there is a need for newer therapies. But unfortunately, we haven't seen a novel class of new antibiotics since 1985. When we talk women, these bacterial infections actually make a generational impact. So, for example, the most prevalent gynecological infection in the United States and globally is bacterial vaginosis, which results from essentially healthy vaginal microbiome getting replaced by infection causing bacteria and biofilms, making these women now predisposed to secondary infections, including UTI and yeast, but also sexually transmitted diseases and reproductive issues that are not limited to preterm births and miscarriages. So the global burden of this indication is about 1 billion women. So that's 1 in 3 women with an overall TAM of about 21 billion USD. Why do we need to do this now is because there's only 2 antibiotics being prescribed to women globally since the 1960s, and about 70% patients end up in the clinic 4 times a year. Many parts of the world don't even have clindamycin, so they just go with metronidazole. As a result of this, we have tapped into nature's first food, which is human milk, and sculpted by evolution, not just to be nutritive for the newborn, but also protective. And milk essentially has antibiotic-like molecules that are human milk peptides that selectively just impact the healthy microbiome. They're synthetically scalable without the need of donor milk, can be modified for efficacy, and have a strong IP portfolio.
1 minute.
For effectiveness, we are showing that they're actually better than standard of care from vaginal swabs of patients who are symptomatic for BV. And we've been through concept through market, utilized AI-enabled platform to accelerate drug discovery that allows us to now develop a first-in-class vaginal insert that delivers these milk-inspired AMPs through prescription routes from physicians and reimbursement via insurance companies. We've also developed a prototype and established that we can have that successfully be inserted and in vivo safety. And as a result of that, we've continued to de-risk our technology through funds from Y Combinator, NIH, and the Gates Foundation, and are now raising a $1.5 million round to IND enable our work for FDA submissions so that we can continue to further develop additional indications, including skin and soft tissue. We are entrepreneurs from UC Davis Milk Bioactives program, and together have worked for 10 years, out of which 5 is at the company. And we're really excited to bring clinical products to the market that are actually inspired by human milk. And a stellar group of advisors as well, who are in the OBGYN space, but also drug discovery and regulatory expertise. With that, I will stop. Appreciate your time and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ishita. Any questions, judges?
So, does this require FDA approval, Ishita?
Yes, it will require the IND approval that will then allow us to get into the clinical trials, so phase 1, 2, and 3. And we are at that stage where we've had our first Type B FDA meeting towards guidance from them relevant to IND submission. And essentially, all they need for us is to repeat the work we've done, but now with pharmaceutical grade material instead of R&D grade material. So we're super excited. We've found out the whole pathway to get there, and the funds will really help us in that direction.
Can I ask you a quick question? So, what is the preclinical data on this? Can you share
Yes.
some information, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of bacterial vaginosis as the lead indication, what we have relied on is in vitro efficacy. So, based on CLSI methods for standard antibacterials, so minimal bactericidal concentrations, selective activity only against pathogenic bacteria, but not the healthy vaginal lactobacilli. But more importantly, we did validation using ex vivo efficacy studies. So, we got through an IRB approved study, 30 patient samples from BV. Patients who were symptomatic, and we were able to then show that in comparison to either no treatment or in many cases current standard of care treatments, these patients had bugs that were not responsive to the standard of care but were still sensitive to our pathogens. And then essentially we were able to take all of that data and then develop the first prototype and test it in the FDA-mandated rabbit vaginal irritation study as a 10-day daily dosing via clinical symptoms and end-of-study histopathology.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And so you're raising money for IND, pre-IND?
Yes, essentially, yes. And we do have a lead investor commitment for 600K of that. So the rest of it will help us just get the GMP material with a CMC package and a final set of GLP tox work that can be submitted to the FDA.
And who are you working with at the Gates Foundation? Which group?
This was the Reproductive Health Challenges group.
The
And
Women's
my
Health
program
Initiative?
officer, yeah, my program officer was Jennifer Gardner.